Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend, Jim Stam. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. Just like a one-of-one Paul Skenes auto patch card. Gary, we are one of one. We are not worth nearly as much, but we are one of one. So congrats, buddy.
Yep. And I was on North Shore 9's The Point Show last week. That was a lot of fun. And check that out if you haven't already.
You represented. I heard you won.
I did win, but it's kind of a fake game show, so it's not the type of thing you brag about. But
well,
a lot of fun.
I'll toot your horn.
That said, I will say ESPN is canceling their version of that show, and North Shore 9 is just getting started. We'll see how far it goes, right?
Right.
So, man, we got a lot of fun stuff planned today because it's the off season, and you and I always keep these scrapbooks of these dumb ideas, and we go, "Oh, we'll wait for the off season," and then the off season comes, and then we never do said dumb ideas. So I'm emptying out the scrapbook a little bit here, right? Definitely. So later on in the show, we're gonna do some weird Mount Rushmores, right? We're gonna do a Mount Rushmore of all Ben Cherington waiver claims. I just think it's going to be fun. So if you're here, pop some in the chat. We'll check them out. We'll add them to our list when we start getting into that.
Throw some in there because I texted Gary earlier today. I was like, dude, this is hard. Like the waiver claims for the Pirates. It's actually kind of sad, but we'll still do the exercise because it ends up being more funny the names you have to actually consider.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I can't wait to get to it. And then another Mount Rushmore type thing, because we toss around these ideas of doing Mount Rushmore, and then we always come back with it's too easy. Honus, Roberto, Willie, but you're only going to go so many directions from there, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought, let's do it from 1980 on. Let's get past the championships. Let's just go Pittsburgh Pirates, never win anything ever. What's our Mount Rushmore from those teams? I think that's a harder exercise, although I do think we're going to have two for sure on everybody's list, right?
I was just going to say a couple are easy, and then after that, man, I think there's some discussion to be had there.
Right. We got to talk a little bit about, does everybody get tendered a contract here? It's time to talk about that a little bit. We didn't protect anybody in the Roll 5, so they spared us from having to deal with that. And I want to talk a little more about Matt Hague, man. Finally got to meet him. The Pirates actually introduced him. Good quote from him. Good quote from IKF about him. I think we should read them and kind of see if they update our feelings at all. So let's do all that. And we got a fun little game we're going to play with Paul Skenes and Libby Dunn's silly picture of him finding out that he won the Cy Young, where he looks like he just got news that his grandmother died, and she looks like she just won a Grammy. So
it's the perfect picture of every male-female relationship.
For those of you watching here, I'll put the picture up just in case you haven't seen it. There you go. And we're gonna go after it. It's a lot of fun. We're gonna meme the hell out of it on this episode, and I hope you help to throw more into the chat for us.
Yeah, and Paul is rocking that beard. I think it looks good. My wife said that he looks like Will Wheaton now. And I was like, yeah, I could see that. And if you don't know who Will Wheaton is, it's probably because you're not a dork like me. But if you do know, it kind of looks like him. So,
oh man, he actually does. You're right. I mean, I think, I don't know. It depends. Is he gonna be one of those guys that grows that big long beard? He looks like Charlie Blackmon out there throwing that fastball. That might be intimidating as hell, actually. Or does he go Randy Johnson and grow out the big Fu Manchu?
I just took it as a sign that he was growing a beard, facial hair, it was the first shot fired that he's not ever going to become a Yankee. And this is, just to
I
dispel
guess.
those rumors.
I guess because then they asked him, and he's like, "Oh, I just got lazy." Like, that's so funny.
The one thing about it, Gary, is the Pirates sure have some flamboyant personalities in that locker room, don't they? Between Brian Reynolds, Brian Hayes, Paul Skenes, Mitch Keller, that has got to be the most mellow group of dudes that you can think of in the world.
Yeah. Matt Holio here agrees with you. Awesome Will Wheaton comp. I totally agree. Will Wheaton, though, that's a great call. There was some show where he was a big reference too, where everybody would go, Will Wheaton. I forget what that was. Was it? Yeah, I think it was Big Bang, actually. I think Sheldon used to have some kind of feud with Will Wheaton for some reason.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was actually really funny. So baseball's been a hard conversation, Jim, like really since the World Series. And even before then, because there was a lot of people that kind of just bailed on the playoffs as soon as they started, right?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wanted to talk baseball, really. We kind of got away with still kind of keeping it about baseball most of the time here. But it's hard. We try to run a fair show here, and I don't think that most people really want to listen to anything right now that isn't shaded in some direction. I feel like they want it to be either extremely critical or extremely optimistic, and that is just not how we roll on this show. So it makes some subjects difficult, to even broach. Like, we want to talk about free agents, but really the proof is in the pudding, even for us. We don't know what they're going to do at this point. So we put out a wish list at best. If you noticed, we're not predicting what's happening at all. That's another part of it. We're very uncomfortable looking forward and knowing exactly what path this team's going to take. I mean, what do you think about that, Jim? Because you're a content creator. That's what we do here, whether we want to admit it or not. It's hard to come up with content sometimes that you actually feel you can discuss in any kind of a way.
Well, yeah, you want to be true to the practicality about what you're talking about. And come to think of it, Gary, that's why you never see either one of us really do not do like future lineups or projecting that kind of stuff or talking about free agents they might sign. We just don't do it. I guess our sweet spot is these are the needs. This is what they could do or maybe should do. And then we react to it based off of that. I think to get ahead of yourself with the Pirates in any way, shape, or form is probably a bad idea.
I mean, I have to be honest. When I started doing this, it was 2019. I knew they were bringing in a new GM, kind of gauged him and everything, figured out a rough timeline. I had through 2024 pretty well mapped out, and I really felt like it, to a degree, followed the script. I don't think he made all the moves I would have made, but pretty much got where I thought they would. I think they underperformed last year, but they pretty much got where I thought they would. I always knew I'd get to this point where, okay, well, now you're in the abyss. Now you're done with the prediction game because it becomes unpredictable when you get to this point. I don't know how rash he's going to be. I don't know how rash he's allowed to be. I don't know who they value. I don't know who they think is going to come back stronger. I don't know who they think is a failure. I don't know any of that. I have indications. But man, they could do just about anything. In many ways, that's super exciting. And in other ways, it's not. Because the Pirates usually don't do anything when they don't have to do something.
This was always this point in time was always coming. I mean, and it's all going to come down to if they decide to augment things from here out. We know where the deficiencies are. They're either going to go out and try to address them as much as they want to or are able to or will do. And then, this is it. it's time to start winning some ball games. You got to start getting that winning percentage up. You got to be in the mix. You have to be.
So, I mean, in many ways, I think that's why you kind of lean towards goofy or vague, and it gets hard to like pinpoint this trade right here. It's all going to be suggestions right now. I really think everybody's trapped in that same cycle, and unless you just want to pound the table every day until they make a move, I don't know. And then I think I'm setting myself up for failure by doing that too.
Because, sure. And on top of it, nothing has really happened yet around baseball.
Except the Angels, yeah.
Yeah, but other than some very minor things, all the shoes need to drop. We're going to be having this conversation probably, or thinking about this conversation for a while.
Right. So you're saying more Mount Rushmores in the future. I get it. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about Matt Hague. I do think we did him a disservice last week, only talking a little bit about him, but we didn't know anything about him. So let's learn.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Jim, Matt Hague was introduced formally by the Pittsburgh Pirates. A couple quotes that I wanted to read, one from him, one from IKF, who worked with him in Toronto, which bluntly I didn't even think about. So I'm glad somebody actually thought to ask him the question, what did you think of having him around?
Yeah, so, it never crossed my mind.
Yeah, so let's start with Matt Hague. And again, much like we just said in segment 1, this is all words, man. Like, until you actually see what happens, it's all words.
Yeah, and Andy Haynes had words too.
Yeah.
So
it's just like, you go through an entire election season and people make promises and tell you things they want to do and everything. Well, then you actually have to go do the job, right? So like, that's where most of them fall on their face, by the way. I think the same can be said for baseball. So I appreciate the words, especially if I think they're well crafted. And the way he said this struck me as exactly what I want to hear from my hitting coach. It doesn't mean it's going to work. But man, I loved it. Let's read it. He emphasized that he intends to develop a deep understanding of each hitter's skills. His mission is to help every Pirates batter be both prepared and confident at the plate, which comes from them having an individualized game plan specific to the situation, matchup, and skill set. I love that. It's kind of what we cry from the couch for 3 or 4 years, right? I mean, like, we want individualized approaches, and you could tell that's not what they were producing. And note, I say what they were producing because I don't care what they were saying. I care about what they were producing. What they were producing was a lineup of players that looked like they were all trying to do the same thing the same way, with 9 different skill sets.
And that will lead, when we get to the IKF thing, is I will tell you what he said that makes me think that backs that up, that they're not going to do that anymore. The other thing that jumped out at me in there is the situational stuff in situations, because my goodness, if the Pirates can try to do one thing right to help themselves out, boy, would it be nice to see some good things happening situationally in games, that, they're not just going to hit 5 home runs in a game and win no matter what kind of situation they put themselves into. Right. So you better take advantage of, moving runners over. If there is a walk to be had, that you get it, that, you know, if you need to bunt, you can do it. I mean, those are things that the Pirates are going to have to do a little bit of.
Well, let's read the IKF quote here. I really liked working with him in Toronto. I'm excited he's now a Pirate. He's an up-and-coming coach that has a really good understanding of analytics as well as different techniques that allow guys to be free in the box. He is going to help us a lot. Free in the box.
That's exactly where I was going.
I mean, we have so many times, especially with a guy like Jack, known that he's locked in his head, man.
It's exactly who I was thinking about, dude. We don't even talk about this stuff.
No, that's kind of the beauty of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that should be how apparent it is, though, that that's the kind of thing that they need. So somebody like that who can understand there's different ways to get through to different guys, different techniques are going to work differently for different guys. Again, listen, they're just words. Take them if you want to. Don't take them if you don't. But to me, that's the kind of thing and the kind of mentality I want to hear. It's the kind of thing that makes me feel like this is a little bit more than just Ben's prescription for how hitters should do whatever. It sounds like this is a little bit more drilling down on actually helping individual players. Good.
Yeah. I mean, look, the feeling free in the box definitely jumped out at me. Simply because, like, I do think, and you've seen it with Pirates hitters especially, is like they're almost like kind of robotic at the plate. You can see what they're trying to do with every guy, you know, like, and some of that stuff works with some guys, and you may want to make them more robotic to help them out and help swing decisions and things like that. There's other guys you're trying to do that with. I think it totally gets them off track.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's one of those things where information overload can be a bad thing at times, and I really do think you need to get back to stressing what guys are comfortable with doing in the box and at the plate, and then building off of that more than trying to fit them into a system in a box.
Yeah, like free in the box is something that struck me mostly because even though I only hit to a certain level in the game, it's something that I think you realize as a hitter, you're never, ever, ever going to be more than a bad hitter until you learn how to be free in the box and not be thinking when that pitch is thrown. I mean, it's so fast reaction. I just don't think people really grasp it firmly. You know, I wish more people would have access to those machines that show you what it's like standing there being pitched to by some of those guys, because you have less than a split second to figure out what you're going to do. And you better be decisive when you do it. So if you're thinking of 5 things instead of 2, you're in trouble.
Absolutely, man. It's like, you know, it's funny, no matter what level you're at, the more information you get piled on top of you tends to end up being a negative thing. Like, even with, you know, Gary, I'm so involved even with my son and playing baseball, and he's 8 and trying to get his swing to where it is. And there are just times where I have to tell myself, Jim, shut up. Like it's too much, you know, like you can't, like he just,
I have the same thing with golf with my kids. Like, you know, even at their age, you know, because they're self-taught, and by self-taught, I mean, I taught them.
Right.
And, you know, they've had lessons here and there since, but you find yourself like on the 13th hole standing behind them, you know, watching them pull the ball for the 4th time. And you're like, move your left foot forward, please.
Yeah.
Like a half an, you know, like it's
sure. And now take that to like a major league level where the information that they have, and you're trying to like funnel that into somebody. And back to Jack Selinsky, I think that's exactly what we're talking about, which is like, you ironically end up like neutering them with it all. And so this will be interesting to see. Hey, we know the other stuff wasn't working, so we'll see.
Hey, anyways, good stuff there. I think that's a good start on making some kind of, at least what appears to be a potentially visible change. You know, let's get into Paul Skenes a little bit. Big night for him on was it Monday or Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Whichever day, he won the award.
What matters is he won.
Rookie of the Year. And he even got one vote for second place in the Cy Young, which I think there was some debate as to whether he would get any higher than 3. You know, he did finish third. What an accomplishment. I mean, what a crazy season he had, Jim. I want to read you some stats that our friend Alex Stump put together over at MLB.com, Pirates.com, whichever you search, you'll find it. It's just some comps to basically other prolific rookie pitcher seasons, you know, and it was eye-opening for me in a couple ways. I want to read them. I know you've got some stats you want to throw in there too. Sometimes the best way to celebrate somebody as special as Paul Skenes is to really look into how they relate to other names that you recognize that as great, you know. Sure. So let's get into it. ERA, he was 5th all time 2024 here with a 196. The 3 guys ahead of him: Andrew Bailey, Hudson Street, Greg Olson, we've had him on the show.
Yes, we have.
And Devin Williams from Milwaukee with a .33 in 2020. So do you count it because of 2020? In fact, now that I realize that his rookie season was 2020, I'm less impressed by the numbers that I'm going to read throughout this entire thing. ERA plus, Paul Skenes, 2.14. Jose Fernandez and Todd Worrell are tied for second with 176. So, I mean, he didn't just like beat it by a little. I mean,
right.
Dude's insane. How about strikeouts per 9? Devin Williams again, 17.7. Craig Kimbrell, 14.8. Kerry Wood, 12.6. Paul Skenes, 11.5. So, and then Alex even points out throughout the piece that Williams' small sample size strikes again, but you know, it is what it is. He's in the record books, right?
And we do know that he's an excellent pitcher, so it's not like this some weirdo that did it. Now you're like,
it's not like
COVID.
You know, Joe Beimel or something, right?
Right.
So strikeouts per walk: Devin Williams 5.9, Paul Skenes 5.3, Craig Kimbrell 4. Walks and hits per 9: Devin Williams 0.63, Andrew Bailey 0.88. Neftali Feliz, remember that name? 0.88. Paul Skenes 0.95. I mean, like, these numbers are sick. Winning percentage for starting pitchers: Paul Skenes 0.786. Bob Grimm in 1954, 0.769, and Gary Peters in 1963 with the White Sox, 0.704. Wins above average: Mark Fidrich is first, 7.3. Paul Skenes, 4.8. Jose Fernandez and John Montefusco tie at 4.8 as well.
Wow.
Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
but he was dodging people, so yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny how that stuff gets started. Like, if you even watch the Pirates, you know, there wasn't a time where even during the season I said to myself that they were doing that. I mean, are they limiting maybe his innings pitched or his pitch count for a game? Sure. Absolutely, they were doing that, but that would have occurred whether it was the Marlins or the Dodgers, right? I mean, that wasn't going to change, but they were not just haphazardly just like moving him around and getting him way off schedule. First of all, how would that even be practical?
It wouldn't be. It was dumb. it was insane to bring up. And I heard people bring it up in season. I kind of thought it was just some crackpots. But I saw national guys talking about it. And I saw tons of people in San Diego talking about it. So Pirates Queen, one of our favorite commenters I saw on Twitter or something, she said she's seeing the Pirates dodge games so Skenes wouldn't have to face better teams. He faced the 2024 world champion Dodgers twice. Sat Ohtani on 3 pitches. Ohtani did not reach base when he was away against him. 2 perfect innings against the Yankees, the World Series runner-up. You know, I agree.
Well, was there anything to suggest to you that Paul Skenes or the Pirates cared about who he was facing, other than trying to get his first start up in a situation where he's at home and you want to be, you might not want to make that first team, the Dodgers. After that, it was just come as it may.
The first game was really the only one where it was a practical decision. I mean, when they bumped him back, they bumped him back a day or 2 here and there. And there were times that he was bumped out of a series that I thought he was going to be in, but I don't think it was about competition so much. I mean, plus I don't really feel like we had a rotation where I was like, oh no, not that guy most of the time. I mean, it was just the Guermont experiment when they were messing around with that 6th guy. That's when you'd be like, ugh, or the bullpen game.
Yeah, because the Pirates never do stuff like that.
Yeah, but I'm saying it wasn't about Paul Skenes.
No.
So Nick Camuso says, man, I have no use for this stuff about Skenes earning a year of control. Pirates losing a shot at a draft pick. They still fast-tracked him and managed his innings pitched where fans got to enjoy him all season. It's not Skenes' fault. He was historically good, or these roles are in place. So that's about people being mad about, losing the year of control. So the Pirates basically screwed up by not calling him up on day 1, Jim, on day 1. And messing around with him, right?
Well, it's just funny. It's like the one time the Pirates actually do something that's just focused on the player, they still get criticized for it. Yeah. Let me put it this way. If your focus is on the draft pick, getting an extra draft pick, instead of solely focusing on Paul Skenes and making sure he's as set up for success as he can be, if that is influencing your decision, you should be fired for that. It's so inconsequential to just making sure you get Paul Skenes right in the right manner and time frame that it needs to be done in.
I mean, they called him up early enough that he started in the All-Star game. He won Rookie of the Year. I mean,
And Gary, they
didn't care about Super 2 at all.
No, and he got stronger as the year went on. And that's where my stuff. You said I had stats and how he won this Rookie of the Year. It's because of all that. I think that he was prepared to go and pitch like he did in the last month or 2 of the season. That we're even having this conversation. So the one time the Pirates do something that I think they actually did exactly right, and the numbers will bear this out, they're still getting bashed for it. Now, maybe they deserve that, but it's a little ironic to me as well. So here we go. I mean, look, I think what ended up happening too is, if you remember, the Jackson Merrill kind of bandwagon started to creep up, right? It was in August and September, and we're like, oh boy, it sounds like a lot of people are just it's leaning that way. This is what Paul Skenes did the last month of the season, and this is why he was Rookie of the Year, and this is incredible. So he, in his 6 starts in September, he had a 0.75 ERA.
Wow.
A 0.92 WHIP, a 186 opponent's average, and 12.75 strikeouts per 9 innings. He gave up 2 runs in those 6 starts, which was tied for the best in Major League Baseball. And he was one of only 6 pitchers in September with at least 5 starts to not allow a home run.
Wow.
And this is another thing. Since Paul Skenes debuted on May 11th, there were only 2 pitchers in baseball that struck out more guys than Paul Skenes since his debut. And one beat him by 5 strikeouts, another beat him by 3 strikeouts. And you know who those 2 dudes were? You may have heard of them. Tarek Skubal and Chris Sale.
Wow.
So Paul Skenes, Gary, pretty much had to be perfect because he wasn't a position player, which is a whole nother argument that I don't want to get into. But he pretty much had to be perfect in September to beat a guy that was playing every day, and he did it. He closed it out himself. He made it so undeniable that people finally had to come back to their senses and say, I cannot overlook the historical significance of what he's done.
Right. And the way like Jared Jones started and kind of had a valley, and I know he had an injury too, but he faded a little bit into the injury. And then he came back out of it and he worked to get back. And by the end of the season, he was back to kind of looking a lot more like he did at the beginning of the season. So when he had a full tank, he looked great. When he was emptying the tank, he looked great. In between, he kind of struggled there for a little bit. And Jared Jones had a terrific rookie season. If Paul Skenes was not here, Jared Jones would be the one we would be talking about. He'd
Right,
be the exciting future ace of the team, right? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I just want to say that because Jared Jones had a much more typical good rookie season, and Paul Skenes was so prolific, you don't even hear him talked about a lot. Like there's people overtly dismissing what happened there. That's crazy,
Sure.
right?
No, it is, and that's how special you'd have to be to have that happen. It's just like, can't even believe I'm going to say this about the Pittsburgh Pirates. When it comes to what they did with Paul Skenes and how they handled it, I don't think you could textbook that any better than what they did. Like they absolutely nailed it. And people suggesting, well, if he'd have been up at the beginning of the year, well, Paul Skenes himself has said those AAA starts, they were able to tie up some loose ends there. And they did it about as perfectly as you possibly could, start to finish.
Especially when the player himself is agreeing with everything along the way. And I don't feel it's been like scripted sounding. I mean, off the cuff, he tends to come forward with his own interjections of needing certain things or appreciating certain aspects of like being pulled from a game. I did see some reporters like, you know, how do you feel about being pulled out there? And he's like, it's what's best for me. We have a plan. We know what we're doing. I'm 100% on board. I knew what I had left, and I knew that was my last inning. That sort of thing. It just shows you that in this instance, at least, they worked with this player well and did what I think is best for him. I wish that the rules weren't this way in MLB. I hate the rule. I said that long ago. I don't think it'll achieve exactly what people want. I think what it'll cause is forcing some teams to do some stupid things with guys and bring them up when they probably shouldn't. You know, I think you could very well see the Pirates do it next year. And I would also say, if you really think they were doing that to Paul Skenes, why didn't they do that to Jared Jones? because they didn't think Jared needed it. That's why. They didn't think Jared needed to do that in the minors.
Well, it's very hard to criticize them for about the pick, but then turn around and acknowledge that they also knew they might lose a year of control with him.
Right.
It's like it wouldn't be some of one and some of the other. You know what I mean? Like, no, this is just what needed to happen. It happened. He still won Rookie of the Year. Here we are. So
and the reality of this goes back to what we talked about last week. Extend the kid. Do something different. Make this moot. Like, make this not matter at all by just doing that extra thing. That's the way to avoid this even being a conversation, because let's be honest, the reason people are pissed is not that we missed out on a draft pick, is that we have a guy who now officially will be here a year less than they might have thought possible. That's all.
And it is a scary thing to think of, like nobody wants to think of these things after a rookie season, but yeah, it's a big reminder of, oh boy, 3.5, 4 years, we're going to be in the Garrett Cole situation and maybe worse.
Yeah. About 10 or 15 teams in this league don't have to deal with that. So
this is true.
All right. Let's take a quick break. We come back. Let's do some silly stuff.
Let's do it.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. Dave White checks in to say, forgot we were all on at 5. Dave, I don't blame you or anyone today. Steelers are playing tonight.
Yes.
I expect most of you are setting up the kegs, coming up with your excuses for calling off tomorrow. And tomorrow morning, you can listen to us with a hangover and know that the audio is better this week and it won't give you a worse headache. Right?
Yeah, now we can't guarantee that it'll be 5 next week. But yes, for right now, Dave, it's good. You have them all again. It's all good.
Yes.
Go Steelers.
So also, we're going to do our Mount Rushmores first, and we're going to finish up with what I really want to do, which is our meme. So I'm going to throw the picture up here again. For those of you listening on audio again, it is Paul Skenes looking like a hostage next to the beautiful Libby Dunn, super excited and happy to be living while he wins the Rookie of the Year. I want you to throw your comments into the chat so we can read them. It's going to be a lot of fun. Comment on the Mount Rushmores as well. We'll read those. That's a lot of fun too. Here we go, Jim. Let's do it. The first of our 2 Mount Rushmore exercises, the all Ben Cherington waiver team, Mount Rushmore. How awesome is this going to be?
Awesome is one word that comes to mind.
All right. We'll bounce them back and forth, right?
Okay.
One at a time. What do you got?
All right.
You can name them and defend them, or you can explain your rationale, however you want to go.
Oh man. Joey Bart.
Joey Bart. I got it. Like it.
I mean, like,
how can you complain about Joey Bart? That's a good one.
Yeah, I know. I know. I went with like a good one first. Obviously, we'll see how that works out in the future. I know a lot of people are convinced about Joey Bart. I think we have some reservations. Yes. Not that he couldn't be good. But we'll see, right? Like, it's baseball.
He could be Ryan Barucki.
Yeah, I'm
another candidate for the Mount Rushmore of waiver claims.
Yes. We got him for cash, though, didn't we? Wasn't Barucki like a?
I don't know. He was on.
Yeah.
So
I know. I think it was a cash thing, but fine. It's not like we have a hell of a lot to pick from.
All right. So that's your first one, right?
Yeah.
All right. You only get 4. So if we overlap, we overlap. Who cares, right? I have on my list Ben Gamble.
Dude, we agreed on one.
Okay, Ben Gamble. Well, we agree on two because I would have picked Bart as well.
Okay.
So Bart and Gamble. I think those are two pretty good ones.
Yeah, Ben Gamble was for what we normally have to look at for these types of guys. He did some good things, and he fit into Pittsburgh well for not being, somebody that he was a hard-nosed ball player. I liked him. Yeah,
I think there was, for the time and place and where the team was and everything, there was an to be made for having him stick around even another year. I think we could have done worse, and then they ultimately kind of did do worse. So
yeah, when you do, when you look at some of the names to pick from, boy, rough stuff.
Yeah, not great. So who else you got?
I put Dennis Santana on this list just simply because, man, it was after that first outing or first or second outing he had with the Pirates, and now it looks like what they might be thinking of him, next year. Again, reliever, you just never know. He could come out next year and look like he has two left hands.
Right.
You never know. But man, there was a while there, Gary. He was unhittable.
Dennis Santana could wind up being quite the find. For real, he could.
he made a semi-believer out of me. And there was just a stretch there where, boy, he looked really good.
My next one, I don't know that you're going to agree with, but I'm just thinking here of value, what we actually got out of this guy for being nothing more than just like a pickup.
Mm-hmm.
Young.
Who?
Chase DeYoung. That's not a good player.
Hey, my silence is telling here.
He ate a ton of innings for us, man, and we really
yeah. There was a point in time there where it was a really feel good story. I think everybody that knew his peripherals were kind of knowing that it might be false hope, but that dude overcame a lot too. So sentimental pick if nothing else, right?
Yep. So who you got next?
Let me see. I had a couple that I was going to pick from here. Is it? It sucks because this is a guy that I think they should have kept longer and then didn't. Now I think he's injured. But Tyler Stevenson.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one, actually. I didn't even think of him, but that's a good one.
Yeah. And then he went somewhere else, and they found even more out of him, which was Tampa, right?
Yep.
And then he got hurt. But I don't know, man. I thought he looked pretty good as a Pirate.
That's a really good one.
Remember, everybody, this is Ben Cherington on stuff.
Yeah. So how about this one? Because it was mostly about the impact he had right after they picked him up. Yoshi Tsutsugo.
I thought you were going to say Nogowski, because Nogowski had 8 hits in his first I don't remember what it was.
Nogowski was a good one too, at least for fun, right? No, I went with Yoshi Tsutsugo. That first year, come on, Yoshi Mania was running wild for a while there. There was people in the stands bringing those Yoshi dolls, it was
Greg
fun.
Brown sure had some fun with it.
It was fun for a minute there. So he makes it out of fame alone.
We wanted that to work, but turns out between Yoshi and who was the other? Who was there's been like 3 Korean Japanese guys we've tried over at first base.
G-Man Choi.
G-Man Choi and
Yu Chang.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yu Chang, but then Yu Chang took off with Boston a little bit and then the Rays and actually hit a bunch of home runs.
Yeah, he got hot for like a month or something like that.
Yeah. How about
like,
Phillip Evans? Remember Phillip Evans?
I do remember Phillip Evans. Yeah.
Well, who else do you got? You got another slot.
No, that's it, dude. I'm done.
You couldn't even get to 4. Good God.
I got 4.
What about Jose Godoy?
Oh my God.
We already said Ryan Barucki. Ryan Barucki probably was a good one. And if you count that, I guess technically they're trades, but
my dreams are weird enough, Gary. I don't need to be dreaming about Jose Godoy one of these nights because of you.
Well, how about Kai Tom? I mean, he loved Kai Tom for a minute there, right?
And his Kai Tom and his on base percentage.
I got a great one for you, and I'm surprised you didn't bring it up.
Okay.
Trans Am Sam.
Yeah, you know what? I did have him for a second, and oh my God, Sam. Jeez, why can't I even think of it? The poor guy,
Sam Howard.
Oh yeah, I loved Sam Howard.
Right. Look, Yoshi's first 2 weeks, he hit like Ruth. He did. You're totally right. It looked, and people were like, "Oh my God, there's somebody Andy Haynes gets through to." And
Matt, you're right. And Matt, in order to keep it, within cultures, I believe his first 2 weeks he hit like Hideki Matsui. If you want to keep
there,
it,
you go.
If you want to keep it on the reel here.
So that's our Mount Rushmore of waiver claims, and I thought it's always fun to kind of go back and just think about some of those names because those are little bits of trivia that will pop up at some point, right? You'll be like, "Yeah, remember this guy played for us."
And I'll even throw in one that obviously is like the all-timer for the Pirates. I think it ended up being a little mini trade or cash or something too, but like Jose Bautista, right? Us having him and then actually having him twice and then giving him away. And then he finds it was like 8 years in Toronto when he compiled like 35 WAR. It was like, and I did look. Yes, he wasn't good defensively. We had him for 2 or 3 years, but his OPS was like in the 7s. Like we couldn't at that time we couldn't figure out a way to hang on to that.
I don't think they knew what OPS was. I mean, it was a different game.
That's true.
They didn't have any special number like that, so they could value guys that couldn't get on base or
couldn't play defense.
Yeah.
And truthfully, who's to say he doesn't go somewhere else? They unlock something out of him, which they did,
sure.
And he probably is never mentioned at all if he stays with the Pirates, unfortunately.
All right, Mount Rushmore number 2.
Mm-hmm.
The Pirates Mount Rushmore since 1980. There's no way you and I both don't have Kutch and Barry.
Right.
We both have Kutch and Barry. So this is really going to be a debate about the last 2 spots. Right.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I think we should both kind of spout out who we think those 2 players should be and then discuss. Okay.
Okay.
So do you want me to go first this time since I made you go first last time?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I don't know if they're right, but this is what I'm going, and I'm not basing it on stats. This is the impact I feel they had on this baseball team.
Mm-hmm.
Rick Russell and Brian Giles. I think Brian Giles is arguably the most underrated hitter the Pirates have ever had. He was unbelievable for a stretch.
He was. It's funny with that era of the Pirates. They were not good. He was pretty special. I think I look back on him a little bit and just think about, clearly I think he was using some enhancers to play the game of baseball very well. But he did some things offensively that Pirate guys haven't done since, even. So,
I mean, I was tempted to go with Pedro, He hit a lot of home runs. And I think they were more important to that run than people give credit for. I just don't feel Marte was good enough, long enough. But anyways, I don't want to argue about guys that you might name. So why don't you go ahead and
No, actually haven't named anybody. And I do think that like that's what made this challenging is like how long did they play for, or how long was this person with the organization?
When you take like Roberto, Honus, and Clement and Willie out of the equation, it gets hard like to do that conversation and have it go anywhere. So I thought past 1980, it makes it a lot more interesting. You have to consider some guys that have warts, right?
Yeah, it's super tough. Like even like pitchers, boy, when you start trying to comically place someone on that list, it looks kind of funny, right? Like if you imagine their face on the Mount Rushmore, like Doug Drabeck, he was a great pitcher
for a very short period of time.
Yeah, and then the other thing is it's very hard to find anybody that played more than like 4 or 5 seasons with the Pirates.
So who do you name?
Okay, I'll give you the first one. Let's just discuss the first one because I think it'll surprise you. Jason Kendall.
No, I toyed with Jason Kendall. He was here a long time. He was, even if I think he was a terrible leader, he was the leader of that team. And he was good.
Yeah, like I think it was 8 or 9 seasons, which is a lifetime to be a Pittsburgh Pirate. Every year was hitting close to 300, if not over. Picked up a lot of hits, good defensively, stole bases. Didn't win a lick while he was with the team, but like longevity, man, that one for me was like that was somebody I thought maybe just had to be on there for as long as he did it for them. All-Star games.
You got a good argument there. I agree. So who else?
So the last one is going to be a little sentimental, and it kind of displaces some of this other stuff, but it's Andy Van Slyke.
My favorite player all time. So
yeah. And I think like too, like, and it's tough. I almost wanted to make the argument that it should be Jim Leland. That it's probably, like let's take a player, because if you think about Pirate since the 1980s, doesn't Jim Leland probably have to be in that discussion of Mount Rushmore if it's not just players?
I guess. I felt I was focusing on players only, but I think that's why I led with Rick Russell, because I felt like a pitcher really needed to be on there, and he was the best one that I've seen. I toyed with AJ, but
that was so short.
I'll be honest. If AJ hadn't left for that 1 year in Philly, I think it would be a lot easier for me to include him in something like this. Emotional leader of that era, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really short time here, big impact. People still to this day talk about, oh, let's get our AJ.
Yeah.
So, I mean, huge impact, certainly has a right to be on there. I think you swayed me with Kendall. I think Kendall belongs on there. So Kutch, Berry, Kendall. I'm sticking with Giles, though. I think Giles really belongs on there. I would drop Russell and give you Kendall.
Okay. And Giles to me is somebody that if I'm not going to put Leland on, I would put Giles on. I mean, he did do some incredible things statistically for the Pirates, left-handed too, which we can never seem to figure out in Pittsburgh either.
So, hey, tell us on X where we screwed up. We got Kutch, Berry, Giles, and Kendall. That's who we've got on our Pirates Mount Rushmore since 1980. I wish it was better than that, and I wish there was more pitching. There's just not.
And to tie it back into everything is, you think about that, we're talking 45 years.
Yeah.
And we can't find a pitcher to put on there, really. And it just reminds you, when you're watching Paul Skenes, he's special in baseball, but he's the unicorn of unicorns for Pittsburgh, the Pirates, like baseball. Yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah. So,
yeah. I mean, he's like your entire life you've eaten country crock, and then you marry somebody and they have real butter. And you're like,
what's the Irish butter that you
get? That with the grass-fed milk cow?
Yeah, and it's in like a fancy, like,
and that's all they use.
I believe that's made by leprechauns. I'm not sure, but so
yeah, that's all they use. And you eat your eggs, and you're like, oh my god, where's this been all? Like, that's the difference here.
Yeah, truly, it'll be interesting because like a younger group is coming up with, you know, the Skenes and the Jared Joneses of the world, and they may be used to something like this because of that. But for anybody who's been around a long time watching the Pirates, my goodness. Kerrygold, there it is.
There you go.
Kerrygold, Randy's got it. Randy Duncan, thank you. But it'll be interesting to see how that sways younger people, because this just doesn't normally happen.
Right. So, other thing we got to talk about a little bit before we get to the last fun part we have, is just basically who the Pirates are going to non-tender. I just want to make sure that we hit on this a little bit. I'm not going to go through the whole list because I don't think a lot of them are question marks. But 3 of them in particular are to me. David Bednar, we talked about it before, but now that you're up against it here, arbitration probably going to get $5.5 to $6 million.
Right.
That's a lot of money. I think they'll probably do it.
Not for us, Gary, but maybe for David.
It's a lot of money for what I watched him do last year. You better have a real belief that better's in there, you know, or you've gotten your arms around whatever the problem was, you know, fully. And maybe with this pitching coach, maybe he's already been like, listen, I've seen this before. And like one of his specialties is targeting, identifying, and eliminating tipping, just so you know. So that's something important there. Brian De La Cruz probably do about $4 million. And Connor Joe probably do about 3.5, something like that. Those 3 in particular are interesting, whether they get tendered or not. I think Bednar is probably safe.
I do too.
The other 2, boy, I don't know, Jim. I don't know.
Well,
Brian De La Cruz would be an indication that Ben Cherington is willing to say he's wrong.
Well, he'd have to just flat out be able to admit it, right? Because you just brought him in. So,
yeah. But that said, that's me painting a box that he is wrong, in fact. And he may not be. So, like,
I in order of confidence of a that they will tender, I will go David, Cruz, Joe.
I think Joe is the most likely to be non-tendered of the group. And then I would go Brian De La Cruz and then David Bednar. Everyone else, I believe, is safe. Ben Heller, I don't.
Yeah. Well, who cares?
I don't see any chance of that either. But who
Quite
cares?
Honestly, right.
The only weird thing is, you know, we had the Rule 5 protections. The Pirates didn't protect anybody in the Rule 5. I've heard that painted as a bad thing. I've heard that painted as, you know, something that you shouldn't worry about. Where I come down on that is, I mean, they kind of promoted a lot of young players quickly. A lot of the people that would have been coming up into that this year are your Jared Jones, your Carmen Majinskis, your Nick Gonzalez, you know, like guys like that would be coming along and needing protected at this point. That draft was short. It was only 5 rounds that year, remember? So you've gone through 3 of them and they've already made it to the majors already. I just don't think there's anything on that timeline. That's all. That said,
Yeah,
they probably should have more international guys that
I was
are
just
coming
I was
up.
just gonna say ideally I would love to be still like, oh man, what are they gonna do with all this?
Right.
So, but I don't know that at this point when they have gotten so many guys up or close, that it's my focus to criticize it either. So
I'm not. I guess if anything, I'm just saying I don't know that you can say anything about it really.
right,
I don't know that it says anything. My excuse for it, if you want to call it that, is that 2020 was a short draft and it's just the timeline. That said, I guess it's kind of sad you don't have anybody that you feel like that determined to protect, but they're also probably going to use Bubba Chandler this year. They're also, and they also took care of some of it really at the end of last year. Like bring up Mike Burrows, when you do those debuts and at the end of the season, that's typically what you're knocking out. That sort of thing.
It'd be great if they had, we know the deficiencies on the offensive side. It would have been great to have some of those dudes ready that you had to protect.
Canyon thinks they will non-tender Brian De La Cruz to save $4 million. I don't know if it's to save $4 million as much as they just don't think he's an option. I've been a proponent already. He's got an option. Do it. Like tender him. Like throw him in the minors. Do this. You treat him the way you will Jack. Throw him down there and leave it go.
It shouldn't have to come down to whether you need to save it or not. I understand what Canyon's saying, but it really shouldn't have to come down to that. Like you said, other organizations don't think twice about that. They can throw them in the minors. I don't care.
Canyon says, hot take, guys. I bet Kutch is the best free agent the Pirates signed this offseason. Maybe. I mean, I get it. I also know you're one of the guys marching around about it downtown, and I understand that, Canyon. Your head's obviously in that place where you expect them to be that pathetic. I'm probably somewhere in between. I mean, they spent $35 million last year. I think they'll spend money this year too. I'm in a different place than you. That's all I can really say. And I'm probably not the right person to jump on the bandwagon. Sorry.
I'll be honest, I'm probably in a different place than both of you. Is like, I'm just not gonna, whatever happens, and I'm gonna talk about it. I get I don't know yet. So that's where I'm at.
Yep. They make stupid choices that I think are stupid. I'm going to say I think they made stupid choices that I think are stupid. Yep. Just try to outlast the thing. I'm going to call them on that too. I think that's really all I want to do is just observe and comment at this point. It's time for that.
And if it's a sad effort at what they end up doing, my goodness, my posts, my comments, our content will reflect that. It's time that they need to do something. So,
yep. But I respect everybody's opinion. Like you approach it however you want. Like whatever. People say whatever helps you sleep at night. I think that's a silly thing for baseball because if you're not sleeping at night over baseball, stop watching it. But
I just talked to a guy today. I was somewhere getting an estimate on something, and we were talking sports, of course. And he just said he has not gone to a Pirate game. He won't go if he gets free ticket. I said, listen, I totally understand that that's where you're at this point. I said, that's, I get it. I don't begrudge anybody. Do whatever you want.
And I think we all have to kind of start being a little bit more understanding of each other too. I think just because somebody goes to a baseball game doesn't mean that they have to be completely anti people that want Bob Nutting to sell. Or if you want to just ignore all of this and cheer for Kutch and Paul Skenes because you just like baseball and just want to be in the sun and watch your guys play and support your team and be optimistic, cool. But there's guys on X. Some of the most annoying people on X are the ones that are so expletive positive that they'll pick you apart for anything that you say about this team. It's like,
Sure, it
bro,
goes both ways.
you're like, bro, I mean, like, I'm sorry, like, my entire life of watching this team, I think I've built up the right to criticize them here and there. You know, like, not everything they do is great. And I don't have to believe every move they're making is smart or wise. I don't have to pretend that Bob Nutting is so hamstrung by the league that this is all he could muster. I don't have to believe that because I know it's bullshit.
Right.
Like,
goes both ways on the spectrum.
I'm a weird guy too. I gotta say, like, I've changed my opinion on a ton of things throughout my life. It's called evolving. You change your opinion on things as you move through life. Like, I may not agree with who I voted for in 1994 anymore,
Sure.
but I sure as hell did in 1994, and I don't regret my vote. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, I mean, you change,
you grow up, and you change, you move on, you live.
And you know, and you get to different points in your life, you know, with different things, relationships, family.
Like Dave says it here. Yeah, I miss baseball right now. I'd rather watch a bad Pirates team than no baseball at all. I thought about not getting the MLB package 2 years ago. Couldn't do it. Dave, I'm the same sad SOB as you. I mean, like, there are times when, like, you just get the heavy shoulders. You're like, man, I don't feel like doing this anymore. There's times when we jump on here and the first thing I say to you is, I don't got it in me today.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we let each other know. We let each other know when the other one needs to bring a little more juice.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's have a little fun. Let's make it Call Your Shot because it deserves to be sponsored. That's how awesome this is going to be. Okay, Jim. Call Your Shot is me, and I'm not going to take the discount because I'm a nice guy. It's going to be this picture of Paul and Libby. Let's make as many comments as we can. I think it's going to be fun. I've got a ton to get us started on Twitter.
Please.
If you're not going to rapid fire them, I understand.
You're going to have to, because I don't care about not knowing about other things, but this, man, like, I need material for this stuff. I can talk about baseball. Takes me a while to be funny. This
stuff's great. I love it.
All
so
right.
Here's a few I got. Obviously, throw them in the chat if you do. I just think it's a hilarious picture that is destined for memes for a long time. There's the picture, everybody, and I'll get us started. We always get cauliflower crust on our pizza now. They didn't have the IPA you like, so I got the Truly sweater pack.
Here's what's great is
you're looking at her face when I'm saying it.
Yes, and what's great is someone is going to be doing this, listening to the audio version, and not know what the picture is.
I've described the picture countless times now.
I know, but it's hard to do it justice because it's so funny to look at.
It is, but you got to live with it. And plus, I have to have you looking at it when I read them because it's 20 times funnier. All right. I saved us a bunch of money. That dress was 50% off.
Now that is 1,000% accurate if you're married.
I dusted your baseball cards with Pledge.
I dusted your 1-of-1 auto patch with Pledge.
I'm having lunch with my tennis instructor. He's just a friend. My mom is staying with us from Thanksgiving to New Year's.
Sadly, that is my existence at times.
Pumpkin spice flavored everything. Oh my God, I can't wait for Wicked to hit theaters.
Oh, Gary, so many of these are hitting too close to home.
We're having salad for dinner. And here's my last one, and I think it's the quintessential one. It's Hallmark Christmas movie time in households across America.
Again. again, too spot on, sir.
Boom shakalaka, Jim. That's what I got. Let's see if you guys brought anything. Nothing. Absolutely nothing in the chat.
Way to go, jerks.
Bring it in the comments later. I know it's quick. You have to react quickly, but I could do this all day because I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, actually, we should post it and just say, "Hey, give us your best ones."
Absolutely. We'll follow up after the show with that. That's all I got today, Jim. That was a lot of stuff to cram in, and I had a good time. I hope you did too.
Yeah, we covered a lot of stuff there, and I want to hear back from people about their Mount Rushmore Hall of Fame post 1980 on the Pirates, because
For sure.
maybe there's a case out there to be made for somebody that we didn't think of.
Yeah. I mean, you should throw up some things up on Twitter, and I'll throw a couple up too, and we'll come back and read some of the results next week.
Sure.
Until further ado, and we don't know when we're going to record for Thanksgiving. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
We'll figure it out and let you know. I took almost a whole bunch of time off work, so I could probably do it whenever I feel like it. So,
yeah,
no
well,
big deal either way.
listen, we'll do it. We'll be probably a little fatter and drunker for it, but we'll get it in there somehow.
Absolutely.
Let's go back!
Yeah, buddy.